Good afternoon, everyone, or wherever else you're coming in from. It's 1:30 here in London, where I'm currently caring for my father, so he may call me off, but if I do have to go off, sit tight and I'll be back within a few minutes. Now, today I want to talk about the relationship between Sun, Moon, Earth, and Venus. This image shows Venus as the morning star, with the crescent moon close by. Uh, the image that you see in modern day Islam of the crescent moon and the star is actually an ancient one that seems to go back to ancient Babylon, perhaps, or maybe Sumeria before that. And it came through to the Islamic tradition via Byzantium. So Byzantium had the symbol on their flag, and then the Ottomans took that on, and that's how it came into Islam, where it's now most associated in the modern world. Now, I want to talk, as I said, about this relationship between Sun, Moon, Earth, and Venus. I've written quite a lot about it in my book, The Cosmos in Stone. So this will go over some of those themes, some of the cosmological numbers and geometries, and then finally a bit of symbolism at the end in Christianity and Islam. In my last session 2 weeks ago, I talked a bit about the rising and the setting of Venus and the symbolism that can be associated with it. Christ and Lucifer, the fallen angel, both descend and ascend, and they're both associated with the planet Venus as the morning star rising and the evening star setting. In this particular sense, they do it in opposite orders, and so they're sort of part of the one process. Lucifer, the fallen angel, coming first, and then Christ rectifying this and doing things in the opposite order. I talk about that in the last episode, which is number 16. Now, what we see here is a cosmological diagram of the orbital circles, the regularized mean orbital circles of Earth. That's the outer one. The next one in with the numbers next to it is Venus's orbital circle. Then the next circle in is Mercury's, which we won't look at in this particular occasion. And then at the very center, the circle with the dot is the Sun, and that's the alchemical glyph of the Sun, circle with a dot in the middle. Now, Venus goes around her orbital circle faster than Earth. So the way we need to look at this diagram is that Earth is fixed. So Earth isn't moving. Earth is just fixed. And so in that sense, we can see Venus as moving very slowly around this circle because it goes faster than Earth. So very slowly moves around. And there are these four distinct sections, each of which has its own number. So as you can see, this little bit here has the number 8. And this is where Venus is between Earth and Sun. Then as Venus goes over this dotted line on the right, there's this section here, 263, then passing behind the Sun in relation to Earth, 50, and then coming back out here, 263 again. Now, these numbers are the numbers of days that Venus is in these particular regions in relation to Earth and Earth's view of the Sun, because as you can probably see, Venus is always roughly in the proximity of the Sun from Earth's perspective. So, Earth would never look behind and see Venus. There's always, Earth would look towards the Sun and Venus will always be somewhere in that sort of region. Now, the way to understand what's going on here is that in this area here, this 263 days is when Venus is the morning star, whereas this 263 days is when Venus is the evening star. Now, the 8-day period here and the 50-day period here are obviously when Venus isn't visible because she passes in front of the Sun or behind the Sun. Now, the way to understand how Earth sees morning and evening star is to think of Earth down here as turning anti-clockwise, like so. So as the Sun is coming into view, Earth's view is coming around here. And as the Sun comes into view, if Venus is here, then Venus will be the morning star. So there, just before the Sun rises. Whereas as Earth's view comes in here, if it goes through a whole day, seeing the Sun, and then the sun goes down and Earth is looking in this area, it will see Venus as the evening star. So that's the, I suppose, the sun-centered understanding of why Venus is both rising as the morning star and setting as the evening star. Now, the key thing is that Venus is visible in twilight. So this is when the sun has gone down. So the sun's glare is too bright to see any stars or planets. You can see the moon sometimes a bit, but it's once the sun is below the horizon that it then becomes possible to see Venus. Now, as I said in my last session, the rising up into heaven, when it comes to Christ and Lucifer, the fallen angel, are sort of oppositional. Lucifer raises himself egoically in hubristic manner, and so the inevitable outcome of that is that he then falls as the evening star down into Sheol, to the center of the earth, the lowest point. But then later, you could say in that Judeo-Christian storyline, Christ comes along and he first voluntarily descends to go down and bring up all that's fallen and dead within the soul, and then brings it up and then rises gloriously as the one morning star who never sets. So in this sense, you could say that that cycle of rising and setting of Venus finishes with Christ's resurrection and ascension, rather like leaving the endless cycle of death and rebirth that you find in the Eastern traditions. So the one morning star who never sets, that's the description of Christ in the Exultet, the Easter proclamation said at the Easter Vigil. Now, I mentioned in the last session how when you have sun and moon on either side, as you do in some of the images of Christ crucified, it symbolizes the idea of opposites. I suppose the middle path being flanked by nighttime and daytime. Nighttime, the time of the moon, daytime, the time of the sun. So the middle path of ascent and descent associated with the cross is twilight, which is exactly when Venus is visible, either rising as the morning star or setting as the evening star. So what I talked about in the previous two sessions is about how the cross has an association with the ascending and descending serpents. Now, going back further before Christianity, this is a Babylonian stele. And in the Babylonian tradition, they have this cosmological ternary or trinity, you could say. And you can see them at the top. On the right is the sun, in the middle is the crescent of the moon, and on the left, the eight-pointed star is Venus. So the sun is Shamash, the moon is Sin, the Lord of Wisdom, and Venus on the left, the eight-pointed star, is Ishtar, where the name Esther comes from. Now, these three, and you could say with Earth, because obviously we're viewing these three heavenly forms from Earth, so Earth is also implicated within this relationship. They have this very interesting numerical relationship, which appears to have come into more recent religions symbolically with numbers and geometry. And I'll show that towards the end of this talk. Now let's look and see what's going on at the moment. Here we have the sun, and here we have Earth. Obviously, don't take the sizes into account. The side of Earth that is illuminated is, of course, the side of Earth that's facing the sun. Now, at the moment, where the moon is, why I'm doing this session today, the moon is new. So the moon is between sun and Earth. So the side of the moon that's illuminated is the other side that we can't actually see. Now, the side of the moon that we can't see is, of course, what's facing us, but the side that we can see is what's facing the sun. Now, on the opposite side of the sun at the moment is Venus, because we've just had a superior conjunction, and it happened about a day and a half ago. So now the moon is in alignment between sun and Earth, and we've got Venus on the other side. It's almost a perfect alignment between the four of them. Not quite, but nearly. Right, now, the relationship between these four, first of all, we can say 8 Earth orbits of the sun, which of course is 8 years. So this is the relationship of Earth and sun in relation to this. Now, if I go to the next one down, this is Venus. Now, in this period of time, this 8-year period, Venus in terms of its relationship with Earth, plots out the coordinates of both a pentagram and an octagram star. Now, in this 8-year period of time, the moon has 99 of its synodic cycles or periods, and 107 of its sidereal cycles. These are the two main cycles associated with the moon. The synodic cycle is the lunar phase that we can see, and the sidereal cycle is quite simply the amount of time it takes for moon to go around Earth. Now, I've talked about this quite a lot in my book, and I've got various talks online where I show this particular thing. I've also got a film called The Pentagram Dance of Earth and Venus, which is on YouTube, which is where I have two of my students actually walking the Earth-Venus relationship in rhythm to some medieval music. Now, the way it happens, because Venus moves faster than Earth, Venus periodically catches up with Earth, and they have another inferior conjunction, which is what's happening here. An inferior conjunction is where you have Earth, Venus, and then Sun in the middle. Now, after 1.6 years, they conjunct. And so if we draw a line between that new conjunction position, and if we keep on doing this, so now another 1.6 years, it's 584 days, they end up conjuncting at this point. Now then another 584 days, and they're here, and then another 584 days, 1.6 years, they're here, and then after 8 years, which is 5 times 1.6, they end up back at the starting point. And this is how the Venus pentagram works. Now, Venus, as I said, also plots out an octagram star as well. Now, the octagram star obviously works in a slightly different way. I've got Earth and Venus to one side here so that we can see the star that's created in a particular orientation. Now, after 1 year, so obviously Earth here ends up back at the starting point after 1 year. If we then view where Venus is after each yearly return of Earth, that's how we get the octagram star. So after 1 year, Earth is back at the starting point, but Venus has gone around 1 and a bit orbits. And so this is where Venus now is. So we draw a line there. Now, 1 more year passes, Earth is back at the starting point, Venus is now here, and so on. So after every year, we mark where Venus is. And this is how we get the octagram star, the 8-pointed star. And this is the star of Ishtar, the star that I showed on that Babylonian stele at the beginning. So we can assume from that that this is Babylonian knowledge. Now, coming forward into Christianity and into medieval Christianity, there is this set of prayer beads known as the rosary. Now, of course, rose is in the name. And interestingly, of course, the beads are fivefold, like the rose with its 5 sepals. Now, the rose is, of course, also associated with Venus and has been for a long time. Aphrodite and the Roman goddess Venus are associated with the rose. And it appears to go back before that as well. It's suggested that the rose is also associated with Ishtar in Babylon and Inanna in Sumeria. Now, the rosary beads are arranged in such a way that you have these 5 mystery beads, and in between the 5 mystery beads, there are sets of 10 known as decades. So here's the 5-fold division with this upside-down pentagram. Fear not, the upside-down pentagram isn't negative. That's a very recent idea, just since about the late 1960s, believe it or not. But there's lots of upside-down pentagrams in medieval Christian art. So you have these 5 mystery beads, and then, as I say, in between them, you have the decades, the sets of 10. And on the sets of 10 beads, there's generally a Hail Mary, an Ave Maria, that's recited. And on the mystery beads, there's an Our Father, Paternoster. Now, the fact it's called a rosary is inevitably, it works well symbolically. The 5-fold symmetry is also what you find in the medieval image of a rose, because a dog rose, one that hasn't been cultivated into a big spiral of petals, natural wild rose has 5 petals and the 5 sepals, which are here lined up with the mystery beads. Now, the interesting thing here, particularly in relation to the association of Venus, because of course Venus has this 5-fold movement, is that the planetary glyph symbol of Venus looks very similar to the rosary beads in the sense of it being a circle with a cross underneath. Now, the Misbah is the Islamic prayer beads. Now, it's sometimes called a tasbih, which is named after the prayer that one says in it, but the actual counting mechanism, the actual necklace, is known as a Misbah. Now, properly speaking, it has 99 beads, but sometimes, as you'll see on the right, it has 33 beads, which are counted around 3 times. But the number really associated with the Misbah is 99. Now, as I mentioned earlier, 99 comes into these cosmological cycles that I'm speaking about here. So the Venus pentagram cycle takes 8 years to occur. And so 8 times 365 and a quarter is 2,922 days. That's the amount of days in 8 years. Now, 99 synodic lunar cycles, there are pretty much 99 of them in 8 years. So if you take 29.53 days and you multiply it by 99, you get something that's only about a day and a half off. So you have this natural choreography whereby Moon, Venus, and then obviously Sun and Earth with the 8-year cycle together create this wonderful choreography. So in this sense, you've got the Christian prayer beads are associated with the Venusian geometry and numbers and symbolism, whereas the Islamic beads are associated with the lunar number. Now that synodic period that I showed at the beginning, where you have the 263 days and the 50 days and the 8 days and the other 263, that's one synodic period. So that's 1.6 years. So there are 5 of them. So if we imagine that this is an 8-year cycle, then we have 5, it's divided up into 5 sections like the 5 synodic periods in the 8-year cycle. Whereas if we look at the Islamic beads as being one complete cycle of 8 years, then it has 99 lunations within it. Now, very interestingly, from a perspective of symbolism, both of these sets of beads are associated with significant mothers within the 2 different traditions. So the Virgin Mary in Christianity and Fatima Zahra in Islam. They're the 2 people who are associated with those 2 sets of prayer beads most prominently. Now, the Virgin Mary is morning star, which is, of course, Venus. And Fatima Zahra, Zahra means princess and flower, but it's also very similar to the Islamic name for the planet Venus, which is Zuhra. Now, I've written a little bit about this in my book. It's in chapter 6, 6.8, the cosmological resemblance of the Virgin Mary and Fatima Zahra. And rather appropriately, by random coincidence, it happens to be on pages 98 and 99 of my book, The Cosmos in Stone. Right, let's draw in a second. If you just give me a minute, I just need to go down and see my father. So I'll be back in a couple of minutes. Please stay with me. Right, hello everyone, I'm back again. Right, I shall de-share my screen. Hello, everyone. Thank you for coming. And I'll just spotlight my camera. Okay, I'm a bit out of breath because I've just run back up the stairs again. So I'll get my breath back in a second. Right, I'm going to get us um, to actually draw a diagram that sort of demonstrates the conjunction cycle of Venus. So showing both the inferior conjunction and the superior conjunction. Right, now as you can see, I'm using a piece of A4 paper. I've got some A3 in the background just to regulate the light setting on my camera. Now we want to begin with a 2.5-inch radial measurement. Like so. Then go into the central point of the page. Right, we're going to divide a circle up into 10. So this might be quite a familiar exercise for some of you, maybe all of you. Um, and we'll then turn the paper over. So we do need a piece of paper that's blank on both sides because we'll put pinprick holes through and then draw on the other side. So as you can see, I've put a horizon line which goes through the center of the circle. Marking the circumference above and below from here, same radial measurement on the compasses. And I'm going to do the equivalent thing on the other side here from the western points of the circle. Right, we'll now move towards getting a cross up here and one down here so that we can put in the vertical bisector. So those marks that we made there need to have these two lines put in. And what these two lines should give us is the midpoint between center and circumference on both sides, between center and circumference. Now, what we need those midpoints for is what we're going to deal with next. And if you find, for instance, that where you put your point of the compasses into the cross, it doesn't quite give you precisely the midpoint between center and circumference, and feel free to shuffle the point around a bit until through trial and error you find yourself in the right place. My teacher, Keith Critchlow, used to associate this with the eyes of Jagannath or Krishna in the Indian tradition. As Krishna is sometimes presented in this form. And this is also how you draw a yin-yang. So for instance, if you were to take the upper semicircle there and the lower semicircle there, then you'd have the form of the taijutsu, yin-yang. Now I'm going from the bottom point of the circle up through the center of that circle up to the top there. And I'm going to draw a V shape. Like so. Now this embodies a particular ratio and a particular angle, which is what leads us to the division of the circle into 5 and 10. The other interesting thing that it does is if I were to do this, this here is the slant of all the passageways in the Great Pyramid. They're all based on what is essentially a 1/2 sekhed measurement. Now, having put that V shape in, I'm now going to put in the equivalent upside down V. So beginning from the northern point, like so. Right, as you can see, I'm placing the points of my compasses into the southern point of the circle now, where like in the bottom of that first V that we drew. And I'm going to open up the compasses a little bit so that I can get the pencil on this point here where the V goes through the circle. Now, obviously, because it's happening there, it should also happen here too. If you find it's not quite, it's happening on one side, you know, getting the connection on one side, not the other, it might be that the point of your compass is ever so slightly off uh, the bottom of the V where it needs to be. Now you should hopefully find that same thing, same relationship should be present there. Right now, there's quite a big stretch on the compasses. It's going to be like this. So as you can see, the whole length of one of those lines in the V, and you should obviously find that it's the same on the other side too. Now you don't have to do the lines that long. I'm just in the habit of doing that myself. It's where the lines cross the main circle. That's really what we want. And I'm going to do the equivalent thing from up above as well. Now, I always say to beware, for instance, where you have these 2 points which are very close together, make sure you mark the correct one, the one that's on the arc. Now, these are the 10 points that we need to um, poke through the paper with the point on the compasses. So carefully work your way through those 10 points. And so what we'll then do once we've got these is turn our paper over, and then we can sort of start afresh with a tenfold division. Now, I suspect you probably can't see my pinprick holes, so I'm going to highlight them with little rings. Now, you don't need to do this if you don't want to. I'm just doing it so you can see what I'm doing and how I'm interacting with the 10 points. But as long as you can just see your pinprick holes, then you don't need to do what I'm doing here. Right, so I'm briefly going to turn my paper back over so that I can re-establish the radial measurement. So that measurement we started with, if I were you, I'd take it from the circle rather than taking it from your ruler. Now, before we turn back over again, I want you to do a couple of marks. So one from there with the radial measurement of the circle that we've just re-established, and then go to the western point here and cross that on. So we end up with a little cross here, which, like I say, is the radius of the circle put from there to here, and then from there to here. And once we've established that cross, we'll need to put a pinprick hole through there as well. Right, having re-established the radial measurement of the circle, I'm actually going to go through those 10 points. Now, if you're going to lose those 10 points by going over them, you might want to mark them as I have. You probably should still be able to see them. And find that little point that we made there. So I've ringed it there. And we want to do another circle with that as our radial measurement. And this is actually the geometric relationship of distance between Earth and Venus. Now, John Martineau shows this in his book of coincidence, and we can select. You can basically fit a square inside here, and that's the relationship of distance between Venus and Earth. I'm just going to redo that bit. My compass has slipped. That's exactly. Right, I'm going to put a few letters and numbers here so that we can distinguish the inferior and the superior conjunctions. So I'm going to begin here with the number 1 at the top and a letter I. And this I is for inferior conjunction. So this is where we're beginning with the inferior conjunctions. Now, an inferior conjunction is where you have Earth, Venus, and the Sun in a straight line. Now, the other beginning point, the other number 1 for the superior conjunctions, I'm going to begin with a number 1 here and an S for superior conjunction. So 1I, 1S. Now, as we go along, I'm going to sort of emulate as best as I can the movements of Earth and Venus. Now, remember, Venus goes around faster than Earth. So if they're in conjunction here, as they start going, Venus goes ahead. Like so. And I'm just going to swap my fingers around for a second to make it easier. And then at this point, the superior conjunction is about to happen. So there. So you have Earth here and Venus here. This is the superior conjunction. Now, the next conjunction that we're going to have is an inferior conjunction, and it's going to be down here. So I'm going to put number 2 and the letter I for the second superior conjunction. So they start moving. Again, Venus is moving faster. And so eventually they catch up with each other here. So this is where you have the next inferior conjunction. And so we can put a line in to mark that. Now, the next superior conjunction is here. So number 2 and an S. And if we go from here again, we'll swap fingers. And here we have the superior conjunction, Earth here, Venus here. So we can go from 1s to 2s. Now, imagining that we keep on doing what I'm demonstrating there, I'm going to put various numbers and letters around so that you can, actually, no, let's carry on as we're working, actually. Let's do the whole thing. Right, so we're here. Now, the next one is going to be an inferior conjunction, and it will happen over here. So 3 and the letter I. Fingers. And here they come, and then they conjunct for an inferior conjunction. Right, I've just been called downstairs again, so I'll go for a few minutes. I think what I'm going to do, actually, no, just bear with me and I'll be back in a few minutes.
Can you put the other slide? Look.
Okay, hello, Ron, I'm back. Right, so the next one is a superior conjunction, and it'll happen down here. So 3s. I believe that's it. Right, so you get the hang of what I'm doing here. So what I'm going to do is write in these various numbers and letters, and we can gradually work our way through the whole thing. So the next one is here. So fourth, number 4 and the letter I. Takes us to the next inferior conjunction, which happens here. Earth, Venus, Sun. Now the next superior conjunction is here. So that's where you have Venus, Sun, and Earth. Now the next inferior conjunction is here. So 5I. And the final superior conjunction, or the fifth one, this one here. So 5S, a bit similar. And then from 5 inferior conjunction, you go back up to 1. And from the 5S, you go back to the 1S. And you have the decagram star that's made up of 2 pentagrams, one pointing up, one pointing down. The pentagram that's pointing up is the one for the inferior conjunctions. That's the one we generally talk about, the Venus pentagram. But there is a Venus decagram as well as the pentagram and the octagram. There's the decagram if you include the superior conjunctions. Now, something I might talk about another time, it's in my book quite a lot about this, is that this rectangle here, in my opinion, is where the ground plan of the Temple of Solomon comes. Lots about that in my book, and perhaps on another session in the future. Right, now, just before we finish, I'll point out again this course that I'm going to be teaching at Michaelmas. Do come along, as I've talked about this a lot more in the previous session, session 16, and yeah, do be in touch about that. I'm going to send out some information about that on a flyer quite soon. Now, the next session is going to be on June the 22nd, Saturday, at 2 a.m. So that's 2 o'clock in the morning. I'll hopefully have just been constructing a labyrinth of light outside Wells Cathedral. That's what I'm hoping to be able to do. I'm just talking to them at the moment about it. And if you happen to be anywhere near Wells, it's summer solstice, essentially, the evening of the summer solstice. Do come along, or perhaps wait till I've sent an email out about it to say it's going to go ahead. Right, thanks for coming, everyone. Sorry for those breaks, those necessary breaks. But I think, in fact, no, it is recording. Yeah, I wasn't sure if it was recording. Right, well, thank you for coming to this session, and hopefully I'll see you at the one at the summer solstice. Do come along. You'll be most welcome to come along either to Wells or 2 o'clock in the morning if you're really feeling a bit sleepless for that full moon, and do come along. Okay, thanks for coming. Goodbye. See you next time.
Thank you, thank
Tom,
you,
thank you.
Thank you, Tom.
What time is the Wales one? If it happens.
Ah,
On 22nd
maybe
of
10
August.
o'clock at night, 10 o'clock in the evening.
Yeah.
I'll probably set it up. It'll be set up
Around the Cathedral Green.
if I can, in front of the cathedral, where you saw me do it before,
Yeah.
but with actually the lights switched on.
Right.
And so perhaps being set up between 8 o'clock, 9 o'clock, if I can get the permission to do it, and then walking it after dark between 10 and midnight. And then I'll have to rush back and do the session at 2 o'clock in the morning. Great. Okay, thanks, everyone.
Thank you, thank you, thank
See you
you.
again.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.